Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah Dawn, joined here by Adam Doricott, Vancouver Regionals. Our second round 4 matches, our players are going for lunch. And I'm just excited to be here. You know, the Hometown Regionals is always a special one for me, the only Canadian VGC event that we're going to get, so
yeah. Yeah, you missed out. You didn't get VGC in Toronto, did you? Which is like Hometown 2 for you, I believe?
But I got DCG at Toronto.
Okay, that's
like,
fair.
you
that's
know.
Fair.
Works out.
You do the same thing I do, right? Where it depends on the event, which one your hometown is at that time.
Well, it wasn't really a hometown. It's just like, here's the Canadian going to the only other Canadian event that we got.
Yeah.
So like that's my current residence, and now we're at the actual hometown. You know, there's a difference. You know that.
That's what I did with Worlds and Orlando Regionals. Just made it up depending on which one was needed.
Exactly. But it's VGC. We're here in Vancouver, and already a couple of good matches under our belt. So
even if you come in top 8, top 16, you'll be in a pretty good position. But yeah, there's the confirmation of our players, and we can start taking a look at those teams as well.
All right. I mean, there's the Palafin. I know that you've said that you're already a fan of that in particular over on Luca's side. Marcus's team, though, I mean, there's definitely those couple of core elements that we've gotten to see quite a bit consistently ever since VGC started in Scarlet and Violet. I'm talking about that Donzo and that Tatsugiri. But other picks that we have seen, just maybe not all together with like Glamora and the Palmet, they've made their stands on other teams, of course, having the Revival Blessing for the Palmet or having the ability that Toxic Debris on that Glamora. So seeing this all together is pretty exciting.
Well, Toxic Debris is actually really interesting looking at the matchup, right? Because this team that Luca's running relies really heavily on the switches, right? It needs to be able to switch around. It needs to be able to switch that Palafin back in. But at least if it's, the Palafin leaves, let's say you hit the Glamora early on, and then as soon as that Palafin comes back in, it is on a timer. Yeah, it's not the quickest timer, right? It's not like it's going down like something like a Perish song, right? Which is going down after a set number of turns. But at least you're able to start causing those problems. And also with the Pormot, I mean, you can extend the game as well to be able to leave a little more time for those toxic ticks to build up and take those knockouts. So this team from Luca definitely looks like one that likes to rotate in and out as well. The Arcanine likes to switch in and out. So if you do get an early activation of Toxic Debris and lay down those toxic spikes, you could be putting yourself in a position to skew the numbers, similar to what you, me, and Gabby were talking about. It's all about putting things in knockout range, and those little bits of damage from the toxic spikes that obviously put toxic or just regular poison down definitely start to work in your favor.
Did you catch that by chance? Did I just see Marcus giving Luca a rose on stream? Am I a little mistaken on that?
You were watching. I'm looking at teams. I'm deep in the teams here.
I was looking at the teams too, but I thought I caught a glimpse.
Confirmation from production that it happened.
Yes, please. I need to see.
They confirmed it. We'll get them to cut it, and we can run the replay later.
Perfect. Hey, that's the Canadian, Here's a little gift before maybe trying to take some matches off you.
Is that a normal thing in Canada?
Not the roses, no.
Okay, that's not like a...
no, not the roses, no.
So I think I'm like decently well versed in how Canada operates, but yeah, never seen that one before.
No, little new. Normally it's something else, like some maple syrup, little candies, But hey, we'll take what we can get out there. We love to see some friendly sportsmanship between our players, but it's time to put all that aside and get into our match. Luca starting off with that Palafin. It's going to be paired up to that Fluttermane, pairing off against the Glamora to lead for Marcus and the Arcanine.
Yeah, and that's where I like to see the Glamora right there in the start. Make sure that you're able to, potentially activate Toxic Debris and set down toxic spikes. Preferably 2 layers, right? Toxic spikes with 2 layers is even stronger than just the single layer. Both these trainers, though, or at least on the side of Marcus, seem to be just locking in really early doors here, making sure that they're able to start going. And we're right into this game, so they've had a little bit of lunch already, and they're ready and raring to go.
Shadow Ball right away into the Glamora just to start dealing some damage in the Wave Crash, doing infinitely more targeted into that Arcanine. Of course, super effective hit. That recoil bring a little bit down, but recoil moves. What about that Flare Blitz into the Fluttermane? That will be a 1-hit KO.
Yeah, that's the Fluttermane gone, and we've still got Glamora to move. Arcanine, though, will be dropping to the recoil, so taking a huge amount of damage in that one. And Glamora's still got the chance to move with a Sludge Bomb into the Palafin. Not enough for a knockout, but it gets the poison as well. So it's already low, and it's already going to start ticking between turns.
Oh, that is so huge, because you were talking, too, about that timer that poison puts on these Pokemon, and already having so much damage dealt onto that Palafin. It's not in hero form yet either. This was just the first turn out on the field. It's just a little zero form Palafin being so low and now only being able to have a couple of turns out on the field when it's able to maybe try and do some more damage. That is really going to be hurting Luca at this point.
Yeah, that kind of rends the Palafin, I don't want to say useless, but limited in what it can do, right? Like maybe you could switch it out and bring it in, in the hero form, and you just need one turn to get that damage down. But we've moved kind of to phase 2 of the game already for Marcus's side. He's got the Dondozo in play. At some point, he needs to get the Tatsugiri in, and then, play the classic strategy, but I think we'd like to get a little bit more out of the Glamora. Of course, the Glamora, wants to get hit with a physical attack to activate those toxic debris, but I think Luca playing kind of wisely around in that one, making sure that not going to give that up for free, but doesn't matter. You still got poisoned at the end of the turn, as Brave Palafin there will be ticking down pretty dangerously low. Could even be a knockout if it doesn't leave the field this turn.
That's the one thing that always feels bad going up against a Glamora, because obviously you do need to be dealing with it at some time, or else it is just going to be hitting these sludge bombs. You never want to be on the bad end of, a roller, a chance of getting poisoned. At this point, though, Terastallization from Luca, it'll be that grass type on that Iron Hand, a very common Terra type for this Pokemon.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people commit to it, right? Just really going for the grass type, helping it out type-wise. That is going to be a protect on the Palafin. Let's see if the Glamora could definitely capitalize off this grass Terra potentially as well, but don't know if it's going to be given that opportunity.
Dondozo going for a protect as well as Earth Power from the Glamora will target into the Iron Hands, but thanks to the defensive Terastallization doing a lot less damage as a close combat ring into the Glamora will take the KO. Of course, it will be a special and a special defense drop on the Iron Hands, as well as dropping that first layer of toxic spikes out on the field. Yeah,
everything that comes in now is going to get poisoned, but I can't see too many switches going on for the side of Luca in this one. Here's the poison tick onto the Palafin, and no time to messing around with the 0 to hero ability. There's not going to be any more switches because he's forced to bring his last Pokemon in right now.
Yeah, and that's rough, but it'll be both players, at least at this point, on to final Pokemon as the Glamora going down makes way for this Tatsugiri to be coming out onto the field. And with the Dondozo there already, it will be the commander activated as soon as the Arcanine, takes that chance to get poisoned itself.
Yeah, does, get caught with it right on the way in, but Commander going right on in there. Basically, it's going to be, can the Dondozo try and finish things up? And I think this is where Luca has banked on this very tight end game where it's like, okay, well, what can Dondozo actually do to me when I'm a Grass Terra on the Iron Hands? Not so much, but you're going to be able to start hitting it back pretty neatly as well. Of course, the Terra type on the Dondozo is always something I'm interested in, not something we've seen out of the side of Marcus right now, hasn't kind of revealed that. So it could put this game to a much slower pace if he also decides to Terra it into something that, guess what, the Iron Hands can't hit and can cause problems that way. So we know, obviously looking at it from our side, that it is going to be the Grass type Terra, which really lays out this obvious game plan, right? It's like you have to deal with the Arcanine. Once you've dealt with the Arcanine, then you can Grass Terra and try and wall out and block out this potential. But seems confident he's going to be able to do it as the Terra type immediately used there. And it does mean, if Arcanine's decided to start attacking into that, you could be getting pretty hurt pretty quickly.
Yeah, so exactly as you said, as soon as the Terastallization there, the game plan is laid out, and that is going to be the Wave Crash into the Arcanine. That will be, of course, enough to be taking it down. To just leave this Dondozo going up against the Iron Hands, the two Grass Terastallization, neither really hitting into the other quite well in that close combat, not doing enough damage, and that's going to be the second round of the defense and the special defense dropping. So,
yep, Dondozo knew it could deal with the Arcanine. Now it's got the safest Terra type available to it, just being able to, kind of block out so many options. And guess what? Now we're just in this really awkward 1v1 where neither of them can hit the other super effectively. But at the end of the day, the Iron Hands has now taken 2 drops from the close combat. So, even this not very effective Wave Crash or, whatever that he decides to go with, I imagine it has to be Wave Crash here just because it's Wave Crash and it's Dondozo's specialty, is going to be hurting a lot more. So these close combats could be coming back to hurt him a little bit. Of course, the Earthquake is free and doesn't cause any problems in return. This is not a lot of damage coming through each turn.
It definitely isn't, but we have to remember too, even if the Iron Hands is going to be able to best the Dondozo at this point, even though it is steadily getting this health increase with the leftovers, there's still going to be the Tatsugiri in the back to be dealing with, and that is definitely something, of course, that will be able to hit a little bit more favorably into this Iron Hands. So we're just going to see these two Pokemon play this slow, chipping the other away, slowly and consistently game for a couple more turns.
Yeah, but the big thing here, of course, is the Dondozo does have the leftovers. So at some point, it's just going to be able to say, you know what, I'll just protect and get back to, you know, a little bit over half, potentially. You know, the Iron Hands is at higher health, but like you say, at some point, you're just going to have to deal with Tatsugiri. And I think as soon as that Tatsugiri pops out, you know, with the Choice Scarf, yeah, you just land an attack on it and you get the knockout there. So Iron Hands trying to go for a little bit more damage with the close combat, but that's another layer of lowered defenses added on. At some point, Dondozo is going to hit you for a knockout.
And even if not, it would just be the Tatsugiri being able to very easily clean that up in the back. So we're going to see another round of the little bit by little bit damage that these two players are going for. We've talked about some Dondozo endgames just being slow. Normally, it's not really up against an Iron Hands or anything of the sort, so that's always fun. That'll be the final close combat to be taken to KO on the Dondozo, but now the Tatsugiri is going to be popping out, and the Tatsugiri, especially with the Choice Scarf, that should be a very, very, very easy cleanup now at what? -4?
-4.
-4, yeah.
I was actually reading through the team sheet and thinking on, you know, Marcus's side what could go wrong. The fact that he has Dragon Pulse has bailed him out here because reading through the other attacks, Muddy Water, Draco Meteor, Icy Wind, I was like, oh no, are we coin flipping the game? And I got to move 4 that says Dragon Pulse and I was like, okay, we're good now. We're good now.
Yeah, we're solid. The Tatsugiri, the lone little fish out on the field, will be able to clean it up for Marcus to take game 1 here.
That's a big win for Marcus, right? You say put a little bit of pressure on him by saying he's the Canadian representation going up against, you know, somebody who's already won a regional this year. Felt really comfortable for him. I think after turn 1, he was really in the driving seat, and once he got into that slow end game, it felt like he was still in the driving seat there too. So fantastic play. That turn 1, you know, the Flutter Mane just went. The Flutter Mane was just taken out immediately, and that is something that going to the drawing board in game 2, Luca probably wants to hold on to one of his attackers for a little bit longer.
Well,
you know, that would help.
It definitely would. What really was tough for Luca to start things off to was the fact that this Palafin just right away got poisoned. So when you're going up against the Glamora, of course, you're like, oh, well, as it stands now, I'm not going to get poisoned anytime soon. Like, I have to hit it first with the physical attack. That actually has to have the spikes down. Then I have to pivot into it. But already having so much damage dealt onto that Palafin and the Sludge Bomb managing to go for the poison, I mean, the Palafin was not long for this game afterwards. And considering that could be such a strong Pokemon, and when you're bringing this one of your 4, that's looking where your damage is going to be coming from. Like, losing that right away was tough. So in the second game, if that's not how the roll goes, that's already going to be a huge boost.
I was, you know, it's odd to see the Palafin being used without activating its ability. Like, it's a very underwhelming Pokemon to begin with, and that's why it's a 0. You want to play it in the hero form, so that's something that, you know, maybe, you know, you have to kind of think about if you're Luca, like, why didn't I switch it out turn 1? You go back to that, you know, yes, it might get poisoned on the way back in, but I'd rather be poisoned at like 100% of my health than poisoned at like 70 something, or like 30%, like 70% gone. So I think that's going to be an adaptation that we're likely to see. But the lead's looking absolutely identical in this one. I mean, we already know that the Arcanine can deal with the Flutter Mane pretty easily, and the Glamora can just follow up with damage as well.
Yeah, so that's where you're going to be able to see an adaptation surely coming out from Luca at this point too. As you said, the Palafin swapping out on that first turn. Sure, whatever you're bringing in might be getting the wrong end of a Sludge Bomb, but you're able to at least swap that out and have it for your end game. You could even just not hit anything physical into the Glamora, instead chip it away with the Flutter Mane, be able to bring the Palafin back in before any toxic debris goes off, and that could also just be a huge win right there.
Yep, that's definitely avoiding that would be a big help. And the Flutter Mane here just has to be careful, right? Like, doesn't want to kind of fall foul of just being caught by a massive Flare Blitz again. So there is going to be a change. We're going to see a different Terra usage in this game. It's going to go onto the Palafin, so kind of committing to it quite early. Usually you see the Water Terra Palafin after it's transformed, but maybe just saying, okay, I'm going to switch out early doors, and I want more damage on that switch, as Arcanine is going to protect itself on this one.
Yeah, the Palafin going all in, but the Arcanine not wanting any of that, as yet again a Shadow Ball going to be hitting into that Glamora spot. The Wave Crash, that is going to be doing nothing. So this Zero Form Palafin going all in is going to be null this turn. And the Sludge Bomb still going to do a significant amount of damage, but this time around there's not going to be any poison.
Yeah, that's a big help there, right? Is being able to take that a whole lot better. And of course, you know, not getting a Wave Crash here is fine, but you know, you didn't get poison. So this is a lot stronger at the end of turn number 1 for Luca. Of course, still has access to the Flutter Mane as well, which was readily removed in game number 1. So that's worked out a whole lot better. And Arcanine understanding, you know, potentially there's a mix-up coming. I think with the Terra boost, the Wave Crash would have dealt with the Arcanine. You know, before the Arcanine was pretty low after that regular Wave Crash. So nicely done to protect that turn. Like, yes, you kind of took your foot off the gas a little bit compared to game number 1 where you got that easy knockout, but you did trade yourself with that Flare Blitz recoil. So makes a lot of sense. As Palafin does leave the field, so we are going to see it do its job a little bit differently later in the game.
As Iron Hands at this point going to be coming out and making sure that the Palafin is not going to be on the wrong end of the Sludge Bomb this time around, is now Terastallization. It will be this Glamora going to go into this Grass type, make sure it can try and stick around just a little longer.
Yeah, I think the Glamora being able to kind of keep itself safe from some of these problems is absolutely huge. Flutter Mane spreading this damage around. Shadow Ball onto the Glamora first turn, Arcanine this turn, but this looks like this could be the run back of what happened in game number 1 to Brave Arcanine.
Yeah, that's yet again a one-hit KO. We got to see that play out before, but the damage from the recoil, not quite enough to be taking the KO. It was very close, though, just hanging on a sliver. The Sludge Bomb into the Iron Hands, though, just on that swap in, though. I mean, it's great luck for Marcus's end, because yet again, going to get the poison. Yeah, and this is, you know, one of those things. If you just get to throw down Sludge Bombs turn after turn after turn, then you are opening up your opportunities to get those poison ticks down. The Arcanine's Intimidate will come through, not really so relevant right now, but, you know, that Grass Terror is interesting to me. I'm not looking at the field. What was Glamora really trying to avoid in that one? You know, was it trying to avoid something like the Wave Crash? Probably, but, you know, you'd already seen the Palafin making moves towards that Arcanine, so could be something that comes back to haunt him a little bit later, but we'll see exactly how he wants to play this one out, as this game's gone a lot slower than game number 1, and I think both trainers are understanding of that. Notably, too, if this is going down to that same Dondozo endgame that we saw in game 1, the fact that Terastallization's already been used from Marcus is going to make this Dondozo a lot more susceptible to the Iron Hands on the other end. It is going to go ahead and join the battle this time around. Now the Flare Blitz, that's another downfall of this Grass Terastallization. The Glamora is going to be taken down from that. At least a layer of toxic debris, but that Terra type does hurt. Yeah,
I mean, you got away from the potential of being just completely demolished by the Palafin, but you then get caught out by the Arcanine, right? And it's like, it kind of goes back to like old school team building, right? It's like, you think about it, with the Terra types, it's now even easier to make a Fire, Water, Grass type, because you can actually have the Grass type be kind of anything you need at that point. Or if there's one part of the triangle that you want even stronger, you can Terra it up and cause problems that way. So here comes Palafin, finally in the hero form, but is that toxic debris going to come back to cause those problems?
Well, at least this time getting poisoned, the Palafin is sitting at a much more feasible health level, so should be able to cause quite a bit of havoc before the poison will be able to take this down just at this point, bringing it just below.
Yeah, I think it's probably 3 or 4 more turns, so you got a lot of time to start stalling things out. And you look at the Dondozo build, we're talking, you know, not everyone wants to win games on timers, not everyone's feeling it. This Dondozo, as we've seen, is a lot more aggressive, so no substitute available for it. Does have 3 attacks alongside its Protect, so certainly going to struggle to slow the game down as much as some other builds, but obviously still has the leftovers, obviously still has increased stats as well as Commander goes off once again from this Tatsugiri, so definitely starting to cause problems. This Earthquake, though, could be big because, you know, it's going to be able to just put down a little bit of extra damage all across the board, and when you're waiting on poison ticks to do that, it's going to really help out.
Yeah, especially to hitting this Earthquake. That'll be a super effective hit into the Arcanine at least, and knowing that the Palafin is pretty low and is just going to get lower and lower each turn with that poison. Just that spread damage that normally wouldn't do the most even with the boost can really start to make that difference.
Yeah, I mean, being able to get knockouts on both Pokemon on your opponent's side always feels good. So we'll see how much they're able to do. The Palafin's going to just keep itself safe, but that means it's just free poison damage on the side of Marcus.
And now here's the Earthquake, just going to be hitting into the Arcanine at this point with that attack boost, thanks to that Commander. At this point, it will be enough to be picking up this KO and take that Arcanine down. So it'll be the Palafin, and it'll be the Iron Hands going up against this Dondozo.
Yeah, but what can stand up against this Earthquake that this Dondozo has access to? We see where the Terra type is. It's over on this Palafin that's getting dangerously low. I'm pretty sure any Earthquake hitting there is going to get the knockout. What can the Iron Hands do? I mean, the Iron Hands can, of course, try and buy a little bit of time with potential fake out, but, we know that Dondozo has Protect, didn't Protect. So at some point, it's going to be able to, just wait and hit that down. Iron Hands will fake out, though, so let's see if Palafin can capitalize off this.
It'll just be about how much damage you can be doing, or
There
the
it
Haze
is.
instead to make sure that the damage coming through on the next turn and the Earthquake that as well this Dondozo can go for is going to be a lot more manageable to deal with. So great turn there coming out from Luca. The poison takes closer and closer to taking this Palafin down, but it's already put in work and we'll be able to have another turn to do more.
The Haze on Palafin is something that a lot of people have kind of innovated with recently. Being able to, give up one of those offensive options and just bring in the Haze makes this Dondozo 10 times more manageable. This Dondozo is now kind of liable to get knocked out a lot easier by attacks from the Iron Hands, by attacks from the Palafin as well. Of course, you can see Marcus kind of pivoting now, right? Saying, you know what? I want to be able to let the poison do some work. So now is the time to try and weave in one of those protects and then just start causing problems that way. Of course, if you buy more time, you can potentially get it down to a kind of 1v1 situation, right? Where something like the Iron Hands is just 1v1ing against the Tatsugiri. But you have to be careful because if it's so low from the poison, it's just going to get knocked out that way. Iron Hands will Wild Charge into the Protect, so of course not getting the damage down, but not getting any recoil either. So it's kind of a weird endgame that I think only Glamora players know. It's pretty difficult to account for your damage calcs correctly when poison's involved.
And the poison from the Palafin not quite enough to be taking it down this turn. So now this will be the final turn left in battle for it to be able to do anything with at this point before that poison will be the ultimate demise, and that move is going to be the Jet Punch. The Water Terastallization, the hero form, but not being a very effective hit whatsoever is just going to be a tickle as now the Earthquake. It won't be the poison taking this down. Instead, it'll be the Earthquake instead. And now the Iron Hands already poisoned so low.
Yeah, the Iron Hands is going to be able to obviously strike back here, but anything you go that's super effective, such as the Wild Charge, is going to catch you in reverse. So yes, does get the knockout with a critical hit on the Dondozo, but there's still a Pokemon waiting to wrap this game up and make sure that it's still in the advantage. I don't think it's going to get the chance. It's going to be Recoil, and there's the feint.
Yeah, so the Tatsugiri, the lone stander, didn't even have to do anything this time around to be victorious. As Marcus Dion, that'll be the Canadian, going on ahead with a 2-0.
Maybe give Marcus big credit. The way he played that set just felt very clean, very commanding against a player who is one of the top players around, already taken down a regional this year, but Marcus played that absolutely perfectly.
Oh, 100%. And that Glamora, I mean, just that poison and how much it was able to do. Because Glamora, it definitely feels like a Pokemon that can be very easily dealt with sometimes. It's a Pokemon that doesn't always have its place in a battle, especially since it can be played around in some cases. But obviously very much so has its strengths because, I mean, if you're not dealing with the Glamora, the Sludge Bombs can definitely do some damage. And hitting 2 out of 3 poisons, I believe it was, from that Sludge Bomb is definitely very, very nice. So congratulations to Marcus on making a team around this Glamora that's faring pretty well.
It's been kind of in and out the metagame, right? Like, particularly with Regulation B, some weeks I feel like everyone's on this Glamora train. They're super hyped for it. They're like, yeah, it's actually the best Pokemon. And then like the next week I'm like, hey guys, what happened to those Glamora teams? And they're kind of like, yeah, we gave up on that one. We dropped that one and we're now building with something else. So it's definitely a Pokemon I think we need to track. I think Toxic Debris is so unique and cool that it can cause these problems. And I mean, I've always been a fan of poison types, and if you're just throwing Sludge Bombs, you are going to get poisons that are going to affect the numbers.
It's a really funny throwback to when people were running like Toxic Spikes Masquerada in Series 1, and it's just it's that, but 10 times better because you don't actually have to be spending the turn setting that up. It's just, oh, as my opponent tries to deal with this Glamora, the Toxic Spike's just going to set itself up, and we're so good. So it's really, really cool to see this Pokemon sticking around in the constant fads of when Glamora is and isn't good.
I think to be a good Glamora player as well, you have to really put the time in with it. I think it's something you can splash in a team and be like, well, I'll get Toxic Debris activated all the time, and I'll get all this extra damage. Like, you need to kind of understand where it fits in. But outside of that, I mean, we talked about it at the top of the show, right? Like, is Dondozo still good? Kind of just locked up both of the end games with it so comfortably too. So a very clear argument that this is still a Pokemon you have to consider. And even with the haze, it wasn't enough to stop it.
Well, especially too, what I really liked about this Dondozo team in particular is that Glamora, because Dondozo, I mean, we were talking about the potential Dondozo stalls or how people don't want to go up against Dondozo because it could be a stalled out game. But then the Glamora kind of solves it in the fact that with putting that Toxic Spikes down, thanks to the Toxic Debris, that you can just outlast your opponent because their Pokemon are going to be consistently chipped down with this poison. So especially having that leftovers Dondozo for Marcus there, it was really, really nice because by the time the Dondozo was at the end game, even when there was the haze from the Palafin, both Pokemon were poisoned. Both Pokemon were so low. The Palafin was one turn away from being KO'd thanks to the poison, never mind the Earthquake that was able to just secure it right then and there. So it was just, it's really nice synergy with those Pokemon in particular. And I have to think, I'm not the biggest fan of Dondozo Tatsugiri teams in general, just as a rule, but I think with the Glamora might be the favorite way that I've seen it played.
Yep, I'm the same boat as you, right? Like, I think I've seen enough Dondozo Tatsugiri for a little while. Like, I'm glad we're onto the Palafin train, we're onto the Azumarill trains. Like, you know, I'm very excited to see those come to the fore. But if you're going to play it, like, at least support it with cool and interesting Pokemon, which I'd say the Glamora kind of, it's the focal point of that team for me, right? Like, it was in the lead both times, so it kind of takes the edge off saying this is a Dondozo team.
Well, it's enough for us for at least this round as Gabby is sitting over with Marcus for our interview.
Thank you so much, Sierra. I'm here with Marcus, who is currently, what, 4-0 at this point in the tournament?
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me steal you for a sec. I really appreciate it.
Here's a rose for your efforts.
Oh, thank you so much.
No problem.
I'm going
Happy
to
to
treasure
help.
this.
That's good.
So speaking of things that we treasure, you were just telling me that you were in Knoxville a couple weeks ago competing, and it sounds like you're running a very similar strategy with minor changes.
Yeah.
So what inspired that?
So the team's kind of inspired by Yuki did fairly well with it at OCIC.
Yeah.
And I kind of was playing around with the idea and changed a few things and thought, hey, this is kind of cool, especially with the Dondozo kind of thing, right? So I figured, hey, I'm going to try something with Glamora, and it's working. I mean, it worked at Knoxville as well, so yeah.
How did you finish in Knoxville for anybody who didn't follow?
I was 17th.
All right, so you just bubbled out of top 16.
Yeah, unfortunately. But something interesting about Knoxville was Luca and I actually played twice, and I lost him both times when we were running like the same six. So this is kind of a big deal for me because it's like I actually got the run back. So I'm really happy about that part. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially to start out very strong, to beat somebody who you struggled with at a previous tournament.
Yeah.
What has been the adjustment that served you the most between Knoxville and today?
So Terra Grass Dondozo was the adjustment that I made with Terra Blast, because it didn't really get to come in this matchup because Luca played quite well around that. But against some of the Palafins, for instance, and especially into the Dondozo mirror, having Terra Grass is super, super valuable, especially when you can hit it with a super strong physical grass move. And it also helps a lot with Amoonguss because Amoonguss can't spore you, it can't Rage Powder you, etc. So it's really, really strong, and I think that's the most worthwhile adjustment I've made. There's some minor ones as well, but it's like that's the main one. And even Luca, when I was on stage, he was like, yeah, I see it. I see what you did there. And I'm like, yeah, that's it, yeah.
How much of your past match was you playing Luca specifically rather than playing the team? Because since you faced him already in 2 best-of-3 sets, I feel like that kind of, you start to learn your opponent at that point.
And Knoxville wasn't even that long ago, so I think a good portion of it was, hey, we played in these 2 matches, I know kind of what you're going to go for. And he went, the adjustment he made was bringing Arcanine this time, but I think with respects to Terra Grass Dondozo, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But just in general, I thought I had a pretty good grasp on how he was going to play and all of that. So, yeah, I think the team, my matchup was definitely improved between Knoxville and now because of the Terra Grass Dondozo. But I think I think that knowing, hey, I've played you before, I think that helped a lot as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Going into game one, what was your strategy? Did you have any like set leads? Did you make like a hard call predicting, you know, well, I saw Luca do this 2 games ago, maybe he's going to do it again type thing?
I think, so what I did as I led, because in Knoxville, in our day 2 set, what I did is I led the Arcanine and the Glamora.
Yeah.
But what I had was Palmot and Tatsugiri in the back instead, because Palmot was dealing damage to the Palafin, a much more aggressive approach.
Yeah.
But here I thought I can kind of bait him into thinking that I was going to do a similar thing and let him get comfortable with that, and then have Dondozo in the back as a surprise. And then it worked game 1, so I thought that game 2 I would go for the same thing and adjust game 3 if necessary.
Yeah, well, it clearly worked out both times. How have your other matches been today?
They've been pretty good. I've played only people that I am familiar with all day. So I played somebody that I know from online, round 1. I played a good friend of mine, round 2, and then yeah, it was a Dondozo mirror. It went on for ages, and then round 3 I played Rogov in the Dondozo mirror. Went on for it's been a day so far. And then I run into Luca, and I'm like, yeah, here we go again. It's been a day.
It's been a day for sure, but are you prepared? Like, are you mentally ready to go the distance, or?
I came here to make a deep run. I've gotten a bunch of top 32s at regionals. Haven't broken that ceiling yet. The objective is to do that this time. So to make that final push, you know.
Yeah. Well, coming off of a 17th, I mean, I know the bubble hurts as it does, but that's still like you're so close to getting there.
Yeah.
Do you have any shout outs you want to make? Anybody at home you want to say hello to while you're hanging out back here?
Yeah. Thank you so much to my mom and my sister for bringing me here. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much to all my friends who are out there right now. Swarmed me with hugs before I said I had to go on to the interview.
Aww.
I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you to everybody from home who's watching me. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And final question, why is your favorite Pokemon Bidoof? He's right here.
Because he's legendary.
He